Hi, this is Tony Maietta, and I'm so excited to be here with the one and only Jerry Carmichael, all grown up, Mr. Jimmy Garrett. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for asking me.
You were 7 years old. Do you remember your first encounter with Lucille Ball?
I absolutely remember my first encounter. How would you not? I Love Lucy was in reruns at that point, and I had done a pilot for Desilu called Suzuki Bean. I think that's how she became aware of me. Plus, Elliot Lewis produced Suzuki Bean, who went on to produce The Lucy Show for the first couple of seasons, I believe.
Do you remember the interview?
Well, the first thing we did is we had to interview with Kerwin Coghlan, who was the Desilu casting director. And I'll never forget, we went down for the initial interview, and Mr. Coghlan knew me from Suzuki Bean, and all the kids would go in and spend 10 minutes and would come out. And I went in, spent about 5 seconds and came out and got in the car. And my mom drove about a third of the way home and said, "Please, you got to tell me what happened in there. Why were you only in there for 5 seconds?" And I said, "Oh, Mr. Coghlan knows me." He said, "I want to see what you look like, and I'll have you back for the interviews with Lucy and Viv." After I had my interview with Kerwin Coghlan, they called us back at a later date. We went to the Desilu Gower Studios. It seemed like every kid in town was there. They had Ralphs and Jerrys and Chris's all over the place, and they would take us in and try different mixes of the kids. And then later, after we'd been there for a while, Lucy and Viv came in and started to read with the kids. They brought us in, and I said my first line, "What am I, invisible or something?"
What's the matter with me? Have I suddenly become invisible?
Lucy just cracked up. She goes, I love the way he talks. He talks so funny, and I love that. And it seemed like they kept bringing in Ralphs, and they'd try other Jerrys, but I kept going back in. And I remember Ralph's agent kept saying, "You and Ralph are going to get the job. You and Ralph are going to get the job." And I remember Tommy Thompson, the first AD, came out and said, "Jimmy Garrett and Ralph Hart, please stay. Can everybody else go home?"
Did you know Ralph Hart before you started working with him?
I had not met Ralph Hart.
You guys had such great chemistry.
Well, we didn't know each other beforehand. We basically met at the interviews, and we developed a friendship over time, and I think it was a big brother, little brother kind of relationship that evolved. Yeah.
How about Candy Moore?
Well, Candy Moore was lovely. And what's interesting, though, is Candy, when we left on the interviews, we believed that it was going to be Deborah Wally that played the Chris character. And I don't know why, what happened behind the scenes, but when we showed up to start the show, there was this lovely Candy Moore that came in. She was just gorgeous, just beautiful. She was sweet as can be.
Did you feel like she was a big sister?
I still feel like she's my big sister, yeah.
Was Desi Arnaz involved at all in the casting?
He was involved as executive producer for the first, 8 or 10 episodes that we were there. But he was very involved. Lucy put a lot of faith in Desi, even after the divorce, because if there was ever anything that wasn't working, she'd call up to his office, he'd come down and take a look, and he generally knew how to fix it.
Now, you have an interesting situation in that you're one of Lucille Ball's 3 sons, 2 sort of sons. We've got little Ricky, obviously Richard Keith, and you. Were you close with you, Desi Jr.? Did you hang out with them?
Well, Desi and Keith and Ralph were all around the same age, and they had a tendency to hang out around together. I was kind of like the little brother. It's like, we'll go get in trouble without, the little brother.
Green, white, green, white, green. Hey! Whatever happened to 'tis the season to be jolly?
What are your memories of Vivian Vance?
The thing I always find interesting in Vivian Vance, when people talk about her or talk about the shows, is I don't think people realized what a comedy team they actually were. They worked together, they rehearsed together, and I can't tell you how many times I heard Viv say to Lucy, "You know, honey, if I wait a beat and then do this, I think it'll be even funnier. Well, let's try it." And they would work through things. Yeah, Lucy was very impressed by others' talents. You know, she would always watch how other people worked, other actors and stars on the show.
What was your relationship like with her?
To me, she was very maternal. She was never harsh or a disciplinarian. I hear that said sometimes, but with me, she couldn't have been lovely. She used to call me the baby. Let's get the baby, let's do this. And even though I was 7 and didn't like particularly being called the baby.
You did have some wonderful deliveries, some wonderful lines.
Thank you. I got lucky. They gave me some great stuff.
This is a facial mask I'm wearing to make me look pretty. Gee, Mom, I thought you looked prettier without it.
I have to give it some credit. I had a good dialogue coach, my mom. What we would do is we would get the scripts on Thursdays, and over the weekends, when I would be going to sleep, my mom would come in, and instead of reading me a story or something like that, we'd go over the scripts. You run lines, yeah. And usually by Monday morning, I'd have the entire, my entire part memorized, yeah.
You had a lot of was it Vivian who referred to them as Fred Mertz lines?
Well, she originally said it. It hadn't occurred to me. All I know is I got these lines that people laughed at. It was thrilling. And after the first show, she picked me up and whispered into my ear. She went, "Oh, you were so good tonight. You were so funny." And she goes, "You delivered your Fred line better than that old poop could have ever done it."
This is the most blackest day of my entire life.
Were there any episodes which stand out to you as some of your favorite?
The first one, of course, just because it was so exciting. All I remember is the buzz that was in the room. Anyone who's ever done like a premiere show or opening night on Broadway, there is just a certain feeling that's in the room that's almost undescribable. But there's an electricity and energy that is the most wonderful thing.
I can imagine that Desilu at that time, with everything that was going on, and you were there for quite some time.
Right.
There just had to be some amazing things. Joe Lombardi, the special effects.
Right. Well, we made friends all over the lot.
Yeah.
And Joe Lombardi was terrific. He was great to the kids. He'd let us come in his he had a space on one of the back streets there, and you'd go in and have all these, miniature airplanes that like are perfect scale models. And a little boy, you go crazy over this stuff. Desilu in those years was an amazing place. What I would do a lot of times is we would go places on the stage that Lucy didn't particularly like. And after I would do my scenes a lot of times, which sometimes were up towards the front of the show, we would sneak around behind and come up between the audience and the cameras and watch. And Lucy went to my mom once and said, "I'm not real comfortable with Jimmy doing that. When the cameras could run over him and hurt him, I would prefer if he didn't do that." So my mom came to me and said, "You can't do that anymore." So what I would do most of the time was sneak up into the booth with Jack Donahue, who was the director. But when Ethel Merman was there, I went ahead and snuck behind because I wanted to watch her sing. And I snuck behind and came up behind the camera, and I'm there, and all of a sudden I feel these two hands on my shoulders. And I look up, and it's Miss Ball. And I went, "Oh boy, I'm in trouble now. I'm gonna catch it." And she leaned down and whispered in my ear. She goes, "You watch this very closely, because you'll never see anybody like this ever again."
Wow.
And she stood there with her hands on my shoulders, behind the cameras in the dangerous spot, watching her sing. Wow. It was amazing.
Come on, dear. Don't be frightened. Everything's all right. The chimney's over there. Back up. Back up.
Do you remember when they filmed the scene with Lucille and Vivian involving a TV antenna? Exactly how that was set up?
They actually did that on the stage in front of the audience. It was one of the side sets. They made a roof that they brought in and then matted in the house below it. But that roof was only like a foot off the ground. The peak of it was maybe 4 feet off the ground.
So then they put a matte painting in?
For the bottom of the house, yeah. And if you look, the houses in the back are all miniatures, and the telephone poles.
I feel like a perfect fool.
There was also a New Year's episode, which I know holds special memories.
I was not thrilled at 7 years old to wear a diaper on television. Now I look back on it, it's not a big deal. But at 7, I didn't like it much, didn't want to wear it. I was a big boy. I didn't want a diaper. I didn't realize at the time, but there's a scene in that same episode where we end up going out with Lucy and Viv because they didn't have dates. And I actually dance with Lucy. And being a short 7-year-old, when I went to put my arms around Lucy, the natural position was Miss Ball's backside. And if you watch that, I think she actually pulls my hand up to get it off of her
derriere.
Yeah.
She kept going, no cuts.
That's in the show.
One thing I want to ask you about, with the advent of DVDs and home videos, there's always a lost episode somebody's finding. But there was actually a verifiable lost episode, one that was written and was never filmed. Lucy and Viv fight over Harry.
I haven't seen that in a long time.
This was actually written, given to you, and rehearsed.
Yeah, we rehearsed for 3 days on that particular episode. As a 7-year-old, I wasn't aware of everything that was going on, but there was a lot of stuff that was going on the stage, and they were rehearsing it, and the bits weren't working. And in my case, I actually broke my ankle on the set. I was up in the bleachers and broke it on a stair step. And they taped it up, and I actually had to help Ralph drag a dummy, and I guess it just didn't look right, and they called Desi down because it wasn't going right to take a look, and after he looked at it, they pulled the plug and sent us home.
What was it like to work with Dick Martin?
Well, Dick Martin, I love to tell people he was a great influence on me. He was a terrific guy. He treated me like an adult. He'd like to play little tricks and games and things. And sitting in the green room while they were shooting the rest of the show, Dick was back there with me, and he was having a cigar and a little liquid refreshment. He was having a beer, and he asked me if I'd ever smoked a cigar. I said, no, I hadn't. And he said, well, why don't you try a puff off my cigar? And I said, oh, man, that tastes terrible. And he goes, well, why don't you clean out your mouth with this? And he handed me the beer. And I had a sip of the beer, and he goes, now try the cigar again. It'll be better this time. So I tried it again and went, nah, I don't think that's so good. He went, all right, well, rinse your mouth out again. And I did, and that was about the time they called me to go on the set. And I went through the door and did my scene. And when I leave, they cut the scene, and you hear her yell out, and Dick, my dressing room. And
so she knew right away.
She knew who to blame, yeah.
She knew who to blame on
well, because I adored him. He would tell me jokes and stories, and he was a terrific guy.
How did you work in the schooling with the work schedule?
They had a studio teacher on the set, Mrs. Haney, the first 2 years. She did My Three Sons for quite a long time, too. And we were, by law, we had to have 3 hours of schooling on the set or somewhere near the stage every day. And quite honestly, I think I got a pretty good education because that was 3 hours, like it was 1 on 3. So she actually paid a lot of attention to each one of us. So I'm very grateful to Mrs. Haney. I learned a great deal from her. But our schedule was on show day, because the show would start shooting at 7 p.m. We would come in at 10 o'clock normally. On show day, we would come in at 1 p.m. And that way they could keep us till 10 o'clock at night. They had a special deal. But that's actually quite amazing if you know how they film today. And the show would generally be in the can, completely finished, by 9:45.
That's amazing.
And if you tell people that shoot today, they'll look at you like you're out of your mind. They knew exactly what they were doing.
Well, it's amazing to talk to you about this stuff because you have a perspective on something that the rest of us see as viewers and you were a participant in.
Right.
It's been so fantastic to talk to you about it.
Well, I do know how lucky I was. I was given a lot of great things to do. It was a wonderful thing.